So good morning, everyone. I am just doing one more click before we get started. So bear with me. And for those of you who are catching the podcast, yes, you guys can't see me moving around. So for those of you who can see me, you can see that I'm sitting in my car today. And this is how we are finishing off 2022 with Chatting with Wisdom. So welcome back to the final session of Chatting with Wisdom for 2022. And for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Rollie Allaire. Gigado Migwinque is my spirit name, and I'm your host of Chatting with Wisdom. Chatting with Wisdom is a weekly interview series featuring amazing women, and there are lots of different ways that women are amazing, and we get to celebrate that. So I invite you to join me in my private Facebook group, Mind, Body, Heart, and Soul Connection, and you can also find a similar group where we have been sharing positivity on that group on Telegram. And so today I would like to welcome Dana. So Dana has Dana Humphrey. So Dana has studied bikram yoga. Apparently I can't pronounce that. I'm probably not going to be able to pronounce the other ones either. Meditation, vipassana, so many different things that I can't pronounce. So Latihan, religion, spirituality, plant-based medicine, and pets. Those ones I can read. She has also completed the NYC Marathon, the NYC Triathlon, and an Ironman. Wow. She is a life coach and a death doula. Dana was born in Canada, raised in London, England, and grew up in Northern California. Wow. She identifies as a global citizen and resides in Rockaway Park. She resides in Rockaway Park on the beach of Queens of New York City. So welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm good.
So this is so lots of those places are things that you are skilled in I can't pronounce. So I'm assuming that they has to do with yoga or some sort of Ayurvedic type practices. Are they the ones that I couldn't pronounce?
Yeah, well, I used to be a marketer. I used to be a public relations person. And in the last few years, I've really focused my life force energy on, more spiritual realms. So vipassana is a type of silent meditation. Latihan is a practice from Indonesia that literally just means practice. And it's just another way of kind of channeling the divine as a hollow bone. So most of the different practices I do are somehow related to that, whether it's movement or stillness. But it's kind of just calling in my inner God goddess and showing up from a place of, emptiness or clarity.
Beautiful. I love that. And even though I cannot pronounce them, I love those. Spirituality is really important to me as well, right? So that piece of things, and for a long time, because of like the whole cliche thing, and I grew up Catholic, and so again, of course, with all the things in terms of the Catholic Church in Canada, has been like lots of stigmatism. So I moved away from following specific religions to being able to follow spirituality. And so for a long time, I was like I was spirituality in the closet, right? So I didn't really share a whole lot of what the things that I believed or the things that were important to me because of that. And so so I love how you incorporate that, and I love how you bring that into your daily practices, so that you can come from that place of connection with spirit, God, creation, whatever it is that people call it, as because it still is that universal source. So thank you for that.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thanks for that explanation.
Yeah.
So we're talking about narcissism, codependency, and love addiction. And so that's, so those are the things that we're talking about today. So tell me a little bit about how you kind of shifted from doing marketing to doing life coaching.
Sure. Well, it's interesting, even what you just mentioned about kind of this idea of, religion being more appropriate than maybe spirituality in North America. I feel like that sometimes can come from a people-pleasing place of, religion is acceptable, but spirituality is a little bit still mystical. So I think it really actually ties in really well with this topic. But I've been a marketer for a long time. I had a PR firm and had my fair share of toxic relationships. And during the pandemic, I actually flew to Guatemala on March 14th of 2020, which was right when the COVID pandemic was starting. And I thought I was going there for a week for a retreat. And I ended up living there for 2 months. And while I was there, it was a really beautiful exploration. And I was living with 11 other people in a house. And while I was there, I kind of had some time, as a lot of other people have as well, but I had some time to really focus on, what was I spending my life on and what was I spending my life force energy on? And I decided to shave my head. I used to have long hair, and it was really as a commitment to myself to stop using my life force energy for promoting and helping other people's, bottom line, and really to use my life force energy to help people. And I've been on my own healing journey for a while now, and I have lots of tools that I've used to help myself. And so really during the pandemic, it was just an opportunity to get clear and get clarity on how I want to spend my life and how I want to help other people and share my tools and share my gifts with people instead of just helping companies make money.
Nice. I love that. And I love that connection. And I love how the universe throws things in our path, even things that we don't necessarily want to see. The universe throws things in our path and says, hey, guess what? You're supposed to be doing something different. So we're going to throw a pandemic your way and you're not going home for a couple months. Right? So, surprise. And you get to make with that what it is that you want. And so one of the things that you were able to do was shifting that connection, whereas some people would have taken those 2 months and just complained the entire time that now they're stuck in Guatemala and they can't come home. And so you actually took that shift and said, hey, I'm going to reinvent myself, cut my hair, start over, start fresh, and really rebuild. And I honor you for that. And so that is absolutely incredible. And I think that is, that's probably one of the best COVID stories that I've heard, because and there has been lots of growth for people. There's been lots of connection. There's lots of awakening that's happened. People are reconnecting with themselves during those the first 2 years. I'm seeing people shifting back to the old patterns. But in the first 2 years, it was incredible to see how awakened people were becoming and really reflecting on themselves. And it really made people have to slow down and think about where they were and what is it that they're doing and how are they shifting from then to now. And so, this year, Canada has not yet announced that they are shutting down. So this is good. We're actually moving into the Christmas season, because last year when we thought everybody else was opening up, Canada said, hey, or at least Ontario said, okay, guess what? We're shutting down. We're going to be shutting down the world again. Your little world is going to be shut down again. So it's just incredible how these last 2 years have really allowed us to be able to shift and see where it is that we're going. And that really does lead into the topic at hand, right? So you talked about having unhealthy relationships over the years, and that really, for most of us, ties into that codependency, right? So that people-pleasing statement that you had made, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the last relationship that I was in really helped bring some awareness to me about my own life and my own patterns and my own decision making. And I spent the first 9 months after my breakup learning all about narcissism, right? About all the different kinds and all the different ways, and still kind of like pointing my finger outwardly, saying like, they're the problem, I'm going to blame them. They're the narcissist, they're the issue. And after, about 9 months of that, I really had to turn that finger around and say, okay, what's going on here? What's the pattern here happening? Because this is the only common denominator in these last 3 relationships that were toxic is me. And so what am I doing to accept this, want this, call it in, attract it? That's, I think, where a lot of the really ahas has happened, is like kind of coming to terms with my own codependency and accepting that and learning from that, and seeing, being able to learn more and more about codependency, so that when I can see myself maybe taking on some of those characteristics, I can pause, right? It's pause and slow down and like reevaluate, check out what kind of flags are happening, whether they're green or red. But yeah, generally, some of the things that probably codependents can relate to is having an external focus, right? Versus an internal focus of just kind of like looking for that outside validation. And really in the, even in the work that I used to do, even in the public relations work that I used to do, that was very much seeking outside validation, right? Getting media placements for other people, getting media placements for other companies, and getting that validation from outside of myself, and giving and giving and giving and hoping that that's going to somehow make somebody want to give to me. Sometimes it can show up as being neurotic, just really wanting to control little details, or sometimes perfectionistic tendencies, right? And that's been a huge practice for me, of kind of letting down those ideas of having to be perfect, or thinking that there's a certain way that is perfect. I'm also an artist, and I like to create things, and that can be a real challenge in art, is like never releasing it or never putting it out there, because you're waiting for that perfect moment for it to be perfect. Yes. Anxiety is also a common thing that codependents face, kind of this, again, like focus on other versus focus on self. Will they like me? Is it good enough? All this type of stuff. And so I've found just like really slowing down, taking time to be quiet, whether it's a beach walk or a meditation or yoga class or reading, or even petting my cats. It's like taking that time to be comfortable in the seat of myself, so that I'm not as affected by what's happening outside of me, and I can respond instead of reacting.
Well, and we hear and I often say, like, we can't change someone else, right? The only person that we have any ability to change, or any ability to connect with, is ourselves. And so I think that is extremely important for us to be able to remember, is that, and I love how you actually pointed out that the common denominator is me. And that doesn't mean that allows people to abuse you, or to, just in case someone's listening and that they're in an abusive relationship and they're thinking, oh, well, I deserve this because I'm choosing, right? So
Right.
That is something that I think that is really important. And because I've worked in the domestic violence field, and I always think that that's really important to point out, but you do have the ability to change. You do have the ability to change the circumstances that you're in. So you don't have to stay in those relationships. You don't have to stay in that environment. And so yes, it's hard. Yes, there's lots of different things, but I think that sometimes people they miss that point that you've made, and then of like reflecting inward, that they then take on the blame for inappropriate behavior. And that's not what it is that you're saying at all in terms of these relationships, right?
Yeah, I think what you said is really important, and there's a lot of nuance with it. It's like this of deservedness, right? So if you're in a place of low, if I'm in a place of low self-esteem or feel like I deserve something, then it's going to be easier for somebody else to manipulate me. And so, and there's with codependency, there's kind of this assumption that if I give and give and give and give, the other person's going to give back to me. And that's just not necessarily how it works if you're with someone who's manipulative in a different way. So yeah, I think it's also about changing your mindset to know that you deserve, whatever you want or whatever it is, and that you have a feeling. I have a feeling that I deserve to be safe, or I have a feeling that I deserve to be, in peace. And it's also about really learning to say no and creating boundaries. And sometimes, if you've been raised in a family where there was no boundaries, you have to learn it from scratch. You get to learn it as an adult or whatever point you're at. And sometimes it can take a while for that to integrate, to really feel that powerful no inside yourself. And so that's a beautiful thing to practice, and that's part of the journey that I've been on, is learning how to set better boundaries and say no more often.
And I love that. I love what it is that you said about that no, is that because no is a complete sentence. And I say that often, no is a complete sentence, N-O period, right? But a lot of us, especially those of us who are codependent, go no, and then it's but I have to tell you all the reasons why it's a no, right? And that's part of that codependency, and that's part of the answer is still no, right? So it doesn't matter what the reasons are, it doesn't matter what your reasons are, you have the right to be able to just say no and be done with it. But one of the things that you said that I really love is that it's about feeling it, right? So really feeling into that no and being able to sit with it. And initially it's uncomfortable, right? So that initial response is oh my God, I said no. And I want so badly to be able to give all the reasons why I don't want to say no, or why I'm saying no. And being able to just sit with that uncomfortableness is probably one of the most challenging. But as you do it more and more often, and as you actually say what it is that you need and express what it is that you need, then it becomes a lot easier, right? So a lot of people often say, yeah, but I've been raised that way, or I'm never going to change, or it's and the outward pointing, right? So again, that outward pointing of, oh, well, if they would just, right? So if they would just. And so it's just really important for us to be able to look at it. So I've been dealing with codependency since I have been 12. And so we started off with family counseling in our household, and I had continued on doing private counseling after my family said, okay, we're done, we don't need to deal with this anymore. I continued to deal with it, and so even to this day at 52, I still have moments where I'm I just got wrapped back into that codependency. What was I thinking? Right? And so it is lifelong. It's a lifelong lesson. It's lifelong challenges. And when we become depleted, or when we become tired, or whatever it is that's happening, we sometimes go back into those patterns and have to remember it and recognize. And that was one of the other things that you said earlier on, is when I recognize that I'm into these patterns, then I can shift that. Right?
Yeah, these can be deep grooves. It can be the entire way that we know how to relate with other people. And, especially if you grew up in a household like that. And that's the case for me. And really, narcissism and codependency are the opposite side of the same coin. And it's about taking responsibility. It's really narcissism and codependency are in a way staying in like a childlike mindset versus like stepping into your full adult self and taking responsibility for your actions, whether it's comfortable or not, or whether you think it's just your fault or not, or it's like really being able to be brave and courageous and say, okay, I made that choice. Now I have to face the consequences. And I'm going to hopefully not make that choice again. And then, like you said, sometimes it happens. And how can I be gentle with myself and forgive myself over and over and over again when it happens again? That's part of the journey as well.
Yep. And that's also really, really important for us to be able to remember. And I love how you actually pointed out that narcissism and codependency are from like the flip side of each coin, right? So it's not that it's like if you're setting clear boundaries, you're not going to tolerate or accept things that are not okay, right? So I've had conversations, especially in this last few weeks, about people so it's Christmas time and their children, they've got grown children, and so they've got all these different things of what it is that they want and they need, and they're always giving. And one of the things that the patterns that I'm often hearing, especially in this last, because Christmas time is always one of those times that are probably most challenging out of all of the years, or the entire time of the year. So whether you celebrate it or not, it just seems to be like this energy. And so the clients that I've been sharing or talking with, one of the things that they've been talking about is that, nobody pays attention to what it is that I need. Well, did you tell them what you needed? So right. Did you, or like, do you have this mind meld that you are hoping that they're going to be able to tap into, right? Like, right. They're not going to
know. And do you pay attention to what you need? You know, like there's like this invisibility piece too, where it's this, oh, woe is me. It's like, no, like, are you looking out for your own needs? Are you sharing those with other people? Are you sharing what you need with yourself, with others? I think this time of year is really challenging. And it's also the time of year where, you have to interact. You maybe have to interact with people who you don't have to interact with the whole rest of the year. Maybe you have to have a dinner in a family dynamic with a narcissistic parent or sibling or something like that. And it can be extra challenging. And like you said, the self-love piece, the self-care piece is so huge and so important to like be strong in yourself. I think of it as like being strong in the seat of myself so that I'm unwavered or less wavered by the external world. If I'm really like taking care of myself and feeling really good about myself, then I'm less influenced by the outside world. And during the holidays, there's so much happening, right? There's like parties and gatherings and gift exchanges and brunches. I have a boundary where usually on Sundays I don't do anything. I just stay at home. And the last couple of weeks, I've been flexible with that boundary because probably some level of people pleasing, of special brunches happening and special events happening. And I'm like, okay, I'll go to that. And then I get a little bit more depleted than I would have been if I had like rejuvenated and sat around and did my resting, that I like to do. So, it's just realizing that everything has a consequence. All the choices we make have a consequence. And just because we get invited to 50 Christmas and Hanukkah parties doesn't mean we have to go to all of them, and that's a great chance to practice our no.
right? So, and being able to weigh, like, what is it that we need, right? So what is it that we need, and versus like, what does somebody else need, right? So really important for us to be able to do that. And I love how you talked about that. So for me, Christmas time is like, so my family knows, like my family knows that my need is that I have a brunch with my kids, who are now adults, and so it's, and that's the day that I do nothing else except for that. And I don't really care which day it is, right? So my kids know that that is a need. And so let me know when we can do it so that we can plan it so that everybody is off. And if it happens that it's not going to happen till the new year, I don't care about that either. But they know that this is a need for me. And so, and so that's something that they are accepting of, and they're able to do. But I don't do all the Christmas parties. So on Tuesday I'm going to an event Christmas party that it's like, oh, do I really want to go? I'm on the board, and I probably should. And so and for that I'm gonna play it by ear. And so depending on how I'm feeling that day energetically, we'll decide whether or not, yeah, I'm gonna go. Right. So my husband's not well, so it's not like he can come with me. So it means that I'm going solo. And so it's like, do I want to? Maybe. I'll see how Tuesday comes around. But it all depends on what it is that we need. And so and being able to recognize that as part of the importance, especially at this time of the year. Right. So now, the other part of the topic that you had, so we talked a little bit about narcissism and codependency and how they relate, but how does love addiction connect with what it is that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's, again, kind of this desire to like get to the end place. Like, there's, there's a strong feeling associated with love, right? And so if we're not taking care of ourselves, if I'm not taking care of myself and loving myself, then I might be more prone to like seeking love outside of myself, and maybe more willing to overlook some of the red flags that I shouldn't be, because I'm so like focused on that end goal of getting into that love state. So that's really how I see it. And I think people who identify, well, not that many people identify as having narcissistic personality disorder, but maybe somebody that has narcissistic tendencies and someone that has codependent tendencies, those two people are going to be more likely to fall into love addiction than more secure people that don't fall into either of those buckets. So the love addiction is just like wanting to get to that love place, wanting to feel all the dopamine and endorphins and those love drugs, and not taking the steps to take care of yourself and make sure, like, I'm going to be safe in this relationship. My needs are going to be met. My boundaries are going to be upheld. I'm going to be heard. I'm going to be seen. I'm going to be listened to. I'm going to be cared for. Versus just, okay, they like me. Can they like me a lot? Let's do this. Like, yes. Yeah. And again, it's kind of like not listening to yourself, and not having a lot of balance, just kind of like jumping in and hoping that it works out, because you are, in a way, it's an addiction to that feeling.
Yes.
And it's complicated. There's so many feelings associated with that. It's like, if somebody loves me, then I'm worthy. If somebody loves me, then I'm pretty. If somebody loves me, then I'm cool. Whatever it is that we're looking for, again, outside of ourselves, for someone else to validate and say, like, yes, you're the one. You're the one I want to be in love with. So it's really coming back to that internal focus, self-love, self-care, and then we can like find the match that really is a match, versus just a person that seems really exciting.
and because that excitement dissipates, right? So like
Right.
that excitement dissipates, and so being able to be excited with yourself, you actually get to continue to do all the things that like make you happy, right? So then you can keep those high dopamine levels, and when you're actually doing things that actually make you feel good. And so one of the things that my ex had said to me one time when I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like, you're like, he was dating lots, and we had a fairly good relationship at that point after we had separated. And it's like, you're dating and you've got like these people, and he's like, but you're giving off the vibe that you don't want anybody. And he was right. I didn't want anybody because I was happy with doing what it is that I wanted, when I wanted, and how I wanted. And so it was lonely sometimes, but it was still something that but at that point it was like that illusion of needing to be in a relationship. And until I accepted that like I didn't need it, then that's when the relationship came into play. And I've been in a long-standing relationship since then. And so we've had our ups and downs, but it's still been but I was okay with it. And so if he were to leave tomorrow, I know that I'm still okay with where I'm at, and I may or may not be looking for someone in the future, right? So because I'm okay with spending time with myself, I'm okay with going for walks by myself, I'm okay with watching a movie by myself. I can do all those things that I like to do by myself and not have to worrying about what everybody else needs, right?
Yeah. Spirit fingers. Absolutely. I mean, some, these styles of relationships, when, you're experiencing narcissism and codependency or love addiction, can be really lonely as well.
Yeah.
Because, there's an illusion, like you said, there's an illusion of being seen or an illusion of being held or being cared for, but there's something missing. So yeah, I mean, yeah. And it's also that attachment piece, once we kind of like get rid of the attachment of the thing we, think we must have, then it comes easily.
Yeah. So, and it really makes a huge difference. Like my husband and I have been together for over 20 years. And so, and for us, it's like we are comfortable with each other. We can do the things that we need to. And like I said, we've had our ups and downs. So we don't have a perfect relationship. And I've yet to meet anybody who's got a perfect relationship.
Sure.
Right. So, but we have our ups and downs, and we've had different ways of being able to do that. But I'm quite comfortable with being where I'm at, and I don't have to worry about where I don't have to worry about it. And so that is something that's really important. So when my codependency habits or traits kick in, it's usually to do with other people, not within my relationship, but with my husband. So it's usually external. It's usually other people that I'm trying to please for whatever reason. And so it's like, hey, just a minute. That doesn't make me feel good. I'm not doing that no more. Right. So,
Yeah.
and I think that those are things that are really important for us to be able to remember and recognize that it's cycle and it's cyclical. And depending on, and if we're depleted, then it's going to be easier for that door to be reopened.
Yeah. There's that makes me think of a theory called the human magnet syndrome. And there's a book about it. There's a YouTube channel about it, that narcissists and codependents together become enmeshed and become kind of whole together. And so there's like this neediness that becomes with this type of relationship. If you are like your own whole person or your own whole adult by yourself, you can enjoy the things you like to enjoy and do all the things you want to do. Now, when you're in relationship with another whole person, yeah, you can have that, I don't know, that ease in relationship where you're not like needing the other person to complete you, right?
Yeah.
You're already whole and complete, and now you get to enjoy your whole full life in its completeness with another person who also gets to enjoy all the things they want to do. Oftentimes with narcissists and codependents, there's this enmeshment that happens, and it's often over a trauma bond of some kind that keeps them together versus I am all that I am. I'm whole and complete, and I want to spend time with you. I don't need to. It's not like because I'm not feeling good enough and I need you to be there to mirror back to me something else.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I would say to my husband all the time is, I don't need you in my life. I want you in my life.
Yeah.
And so like, again, not that I wouldn't miss him. Like, we've been together for a long time. We've got lots of connection, but it's that want, right? So like, I don't need him. I want him. And so like, that makes a huge difference in those connections. And I love the way that you actually talked about like the wholeness of like two people in that wholeness. And so we support each other and we do what it is that we need for each other when we need to. Right. So that makes a huge difference. Now, can you tell me a little bit about your book? Because you wrote a book.
Yeah. So also during the pandemic, I had been working on a different book for many years, and it wasn't the real message that I wanted to tell. So back when I was doing marketing and public relations, I specialized in the pet industry, and I positioned myself as the pet lady. So I worked out a deal with a publisher that I was going to write a book called Adventures with the Pet Lady. So I wrote that book, and I never gave it to her because it felt a little too fake. It just didn't, it's going to be a coffee table book, like an easy read. And I kind of sat with it for about 8 years. And then while I was in Guatemala, I just started writing my stories, just my own life stories. And in January of last year, I published a book. It's called May All Beings Be Fed. And it's a memoir. It's about my life. I have it right here. And the impetus for the title came from a moment when I was at a retreat, and I was sitting on the balcony, and there was a lot of mosquitoes. And the mosquitoes were completely all around us. The sun was setting. It was really beautiful. And I didn't feel compelled to leave the mosquito-filled balcony. But my friend who I was sitting with at the moment told me this theory about how when mosquitoes bite us, the bumps that we get is from the resistance. And so from that moment, I changed my philosophy and I dropped the resistance to may all beings be fed. And I don't get mosquito bites anymore. They still bite me. I don't have a reaction to it. And this is kind of just a metaphor for my entire story of, my journey in forgiveness with the narcissists that I've been with and the narcissists in my own family of, they might try to do whatever they want to me, but I'm going to drop the resistance and I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to forgive them. And, may they get everything that they need as well. So that I can, move on with enjoyment and without regret or without revenge or anything like that. And realize my part in the equation. So that's where the title comes from. My hope is that it just shows people another perspective. My hope is that at least one person might read this book and feel seen, and might gain some awareness about love bombing and choose to love differently and choose to love themselves first and make responsible choices.
And responsible choices to themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So responsible choices to themselves. And so one of the things that I have a girlfriend that says often, whenever it is that something is going on in her life that she has that ability of being able to say, I choose to, right? So like consciously being able to say, so I'm going to use a bag of chips, for example, right? So like today I choose to eat this bag of chips, or today I choose to say yes when I really want to say no, depending on what it is that you are doing, so that if you're doing it consciously. So I used the example of I was in a grief summit on Monday, and the example that I had used is that I don't do the Christmas scene. Like that is not my thing. I stick with just, I have my just my boys and my husband and my mother-in-law, and because she lives with us, otherwise she probably wouldn't be included either, and my son's girlfriend, and so like it's just that small knit family, and then their children when it comes along, and that kind of thing. So but it's just that space, and they get to go do like all the big dinners and all that other stuff together. And so but last year my dad died in August, and so come December my mom was living by herself, and she was having a really hard time. And so so last year I chose to be doing an activity with my sisters and families. And so like we had an event, and I had invited my kids as well. And so last year I chose, right? This year I'm choosing not to. This year I've been invited, but I'm choosing not to, because that's not what it is. Like we have dinners and stuff at different times of the year, and doing like all the kerfuffle stuff is not for me, and I don't want to. And so but that's also really important, is that when we're consciously making a decision on something that we know that it's not something that we want to do, but for whatever reason we're feeling compelled to do, and in that particular situation it was to help support my mom in grief, and but otherwise it's not, right? So it's about that choose. So I love that statement that Tracy says all the time, is I choose to, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm making a choice to do something that goes against where it is that I'm at for whatever reason, that that I get to consciously say yes or no, and I have my own reasons as to why it is that I'm doing that. So I'm blessed that she shared that with me.
Yeah, totally. It's about discernment. Discernment continues to be a theme and a choice that of a word that I apply in my life. It's when is it oh, I should do this, and when is it I want to do this. And then there are those times where I'm feeling a no here, but I'm choosing a yes because I care about this person, and I'm going to leave when I feel full from that experience.
Yep.
And giving yourself permission for that too. Like, I don't have to stay the whole time. I'm going to go to this thing. It's 3 hours, and I'm going to give myself permission to leave after an hour if that's what it is.
Yes. And I think that makes a huge difference. And when we're able to do that. So one of the other things that you had that you wanted to be able to share was a YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel. It's Dana Humphrey Life Coaching. I have some guided meditations in there that people can check out. They're pretty short, anywhere from like 8 to 20 minutes. When sometimes I enjoy just turning on a YouTube meditation and being guided through it. So I hope people can find some peace with the meditations I have on there, and I'd love to know your feedback.
Awesome. So for those of you who are on Facebook and YouTube, I have shared on my Facebook page, Facebook and YouTube, not inside the group. So if you're inside the Facebook group, you have to follow Dana's instructions on how to be able to get there. But if you have trouble finding the link, let us know. We'll definitely get it to you. And but so there are both the YouTube channel and your book has both been listed on the link. And because I know that I'm somebody who like, oh, what's that link? Can you give me that link? I'm the link person. So I appreciate having the link. So I shared that where I could. And but for those of you who are on the podcast, that will be one of the areas that you'll have to go find it. But we will definitely help you. So if you let us know, we will definitely help you find it. And so, is there anything else, Dana, that you wanted to make sure that we touched on that we didn't get a chance to touch on today?
Something that's just coming up right now is Ho'oponopono. I feel like that's really been something that's helped me a lot during this healing process, specifically with codependency and narcissism. And that is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And that's something that, yeah, at first I was kind of saying, even though I was saying it to myself, like saying it kind of as a prayer outwardly. And I've also learned to like give it to myself. And so, yeah, I'm like continually in the process of forgiving myself and loving myself. And I think that the Ho'oponopono prayer just makes it really simple and really easy. But I love that tool, and it's something I can think about for another person or myself. And sometimes that can be the hardest piece is once you do take responsibility for the choices that you've made, you've made in your life, or I've made in my life, then saying, okay, I had a piece in the puzzle here. I thought I was just going to blame them, and now I realize my play here. Can I forgive myself again and again and again? And even when it's hard, and even when it maybe happens again, maybe that I meet someone and I get excited, and 2 weeks later I realize they also have narcissistic tendencies, and I can forgive myself again and,
Yes.
and move on.
And I think that that's really important. And so I have two business cards that I use, and one of my business cards actually has the Ho'oponopono on the back of it, and it actually has like the description as to like what it is, like each one of those statements refer to, and why. And so it's been something that I've handed to people so that they actually have that on the back of the card. And so but yeah, so like definitely, so share that in the comments as well. So thank you so much, Dana, for joining, and thank you so much for being our final guest of Chatting with Wisdom this year. And looking forward to connecting with so many more amazing women and having these amazing conversations again, and starting in January. So, but for now, Chatting with Wisdom is signing off until 2023. So thanks again, everyone, for supporting us and for listening in and tuning in. And and I love receiving the feedback. So I will chat soon and talk to you guys later. Bye for now.